So this is a question from David. Thank you, David, who says, I suspect that the NS won't be doing a centrist power list. This is after our left power list and right power list, which you may have seen in our magazine, out of a fear of self-parody, if nothing else. But would the podcast like to suggest a few figures who might make a centrist top 50?
Great question. Thanks, David. Let's indulge David and pick a few people who we would put on a centrist power list, which is not something that we're going to be putting together, I don't think, anytime soon. I found this really difficult. I was trying to work out who I could put on our list because most of the centrists or the major centrists are already on the left power list, which tells you something about where centrism is today. But my pick is going to be Paddington Bear. I think he's the top centrist.
That's
Brilliant.
So good.
Because he's a patriot. He has, marmalade sandwiches and afternoon tea with the Queen. But he's also an immigrant and very liberal on immigration. And I think those two things really do define what a centrist is in this country now. And I can imagine him having like a Restless Politics style podcast with Rupert the Bear, where they're like, chatting about stuff, and it could be called Bear Necessities or something like that. The Bear
I would
Facts.
listen to that.
Yeah. I'm sure it would do really well.
Well, mine isn't as clever as that. I really struggled because everyone I was thinking of was already on our left power list. So, and actually, this man maybe as well, but I do think he is a centrist voice. And so I've picked James O'Brien from LBC.
Yeah.
I think LBC is a really interesting radio station in that it gives so much power to the voices of the callers who come in. And when you listen to James, so he was a very dominant voice during the Brexit years, often in opposition to quite a lot of his colleagues on the airwaves. I think that that sort of dynamic, that comparison of James, against Nick Ferrari was quite interesting. It was quite influential.
Well, I think he was the first viral centrist dad, kind of, wasn't he?
I think he was, and I think he leans into that.
Yeah.
He does. You can sense he's annoyed about things when he talks through issues, but he never calls for radical change. All his values are very much based in sort of justice and tolerance, and can't we all just be a bit nicer to each other in a way that probably frustrates people on the right and the left in equal measure. I think he's an excellent communicator, both writing and verbally, and I think LBC has got growing reach. I think James O'Brien gets 1.4 million listeners a week, and he's always against Nick Ferrari as well. I just think he leans into his privilege in a very self-referential way. He acknowledges it, but he also gives voice to other people. But he never calls for anything too radical, which I think puts him firmly in the sort of centrist liberal bracket. And I just think LBC it's got great reach. It has a lot of people tuning into it, a lot of people across the political spectrum giving their voice, and he's just the sort of central conduit through which they all speak. So my pick, James O'Brien.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Yeah, I'm surprised he wasn't on our left power list, actually.
He wasn't? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I had to double check.
So I actually found this very easy because I just went to the podcast charts, which is almost entirely composed of centrist dads in their second careers, other than the wonderful podcast on which we are currently appearing, No Centrist Dads.
Yeah, we're just extremists.
We do have some very extreme positions at the New Statesman. But I think my pick was based on a more cynical definition of centrism, which is defining it as the pretense that there is such a thing as a middle ground in politics. So you don't get a pilot or a surgeon saying, well, let's sort of have a kind of reasonable position on what it is that they are extreme believers that what they are going to do when they're operating on a brain or landing a plane is the right thing to do. And I think so are politicians. And I think, you see that in people like, I think we have seen that most particularly in people like David Cameron and George Osborne, who, came in pretending to be like pretty much the same as the party who had previously been in power. Cameron described himself as the heir to Blair, but weren't. Their policies were radical, and they enacted radical change that they had an extreme belief in. So I think George Osborne sums up true centrist power, which is the power to sort of maintain a reasonable demeanour while absolutely trashing the country, and then sauntering back in with his top button undone and saying that, "Hi, guys, let's just do an affable podcast about whose fault this all is." So yeah, I think, and I think anyone who listens to George Osborne's podcast should know that they are complicit in the laundering of austerity. So yeah, George Osborne.
Here.
Do you want to take Paddington Bear off the list with that definition then?
Yeah,
seems a bit harsh.
Yeah, Paddington, the biggest chancer of them all.
I think he clearly has his. Paddington is a bear of true values, whereas centrism really is the position of avoiding having to say what your values really are.
I think we should make this list now.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, let's go and talk to George Eaton after this.
Could I
have
also,
a meltdown.
Could I throw in a couple of other nominees? One which was really obvious, which was Ed Davey, who I do think I find a very interesting politician, but also, in demeanour sums up that kind of, look, guys, can we just sort this out kind of approach to politics. Let's put on some waders and just go and sort the sewage out, and I wanted to put in the Princess of Wales as well, because in our power lists we do this mix of politicians and cultural figures, and I think the way in which her and the Prince of Wales have kind of taken over as the sort of the centrist royals, again pretending that like this incredibly reactionary, strange institution that they are, at the head of, or near the head of, is anything, is a kind of middle of the road, reasonable political.
We care about nature and mental health, and
Yeah.
all good ones. I think they're really good. Thanks so much for bringing more serious answers to the table than mine. Thanks so much for watching. We'd love to know what you think. Please make sure you leave your comments below. And if you enjoyed watching this podcast, you can watch more of our videos on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to like and subscribe.